What did we learn about him? We saw him those other games, and then he came in today. What have we learned about Spencer Rattler when he came in the second half?
Well, it's eye-opening. I mean, I thought he might be shelved for the rest of the season. I thought all Spencer Rattler talk was going to be theoretical. And it would be, well, we can't really discount him because of those 3 games when he started and the offensive line stunk at the time. But I thought it was going to be based on, just blind faith. And now we have something to really go by. And this is more impressive than anything he did in the preseason. It's more impressive to me than anything he did in training camp. Nick had a great tweet with about 4 minutes to go in the game saying, can the Saints please make a stop? I need to see a Spencer Rattler 2-minute drive for research purposes. And, man, if he didn't nail that 2-minute drive, I liked his poise and his patience and his confidence, not panicking as the clock tick, 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 tick down, making big throws. He was 5 of 6 on that drive, not including the spike. So even though he only ended up 10 of 21 in this game, which doesn't jump off the page, he admitted there were some missed opportunities on the field goal drives. Just that 2-minute drive alone kind of resurrects all the Spencer Rattler faith and hope and promise that we had earlier this summer.
I mean, let's even forget the 2-minute drive. Just that throw to Valdez-Scantling down the field was unbelievable. I mean, the pocket's collapsing on him. He can't step up. Like that was all arm, and he nailed that. He kind of saw a single high there, put it in the middle of the field. It was kind of it felt like a risky throw. That's one of those throws where if you like the quarterback, it's an amazing throw. If you don't like the quarterback, he kind of got lucky on it. Frankly, I think it was a great throw. And he hit it when he first threw it. I was like, man, I don't know. And then I went back and kind of broke it down, watched the coverage, and I felt really good about that throw. Yeah, 10 of 21 today. Definitely stuff to work on. I don't think that you say this is a player that has arrived, but it's definitely back to feeling really good about his future and his upside and his tools and all that stuff. I mean, look, this is right up there with that first half of his very first start where kind of at halftime I was like, wow, he's really good. This time, though, they had him making throws from the pocket. I kind of feel a little bit better about this one than any of them at this point. And it was adverse situations, down by 17. They can kind of come in and tee off on you a little bit. And he managed to handle it. And the juxtaposition of him to Jake Haener couldn't have been more stark. This difference, like there's a few things here, and we'll get into Haener, but I mean this is the guy. This is the guy that we saw in camp that kind of had everybody excited. And you also saw the downs in camp, which is kind of reflective of what we've seen this season. There have been really, really nice highs. There have been some lows within it. But I think with a player like this that's picked in the 5th round, you kind of look at the highs and you kind of got to think about, what can you do with this? Where can it go? How can it get better? I'm not ready to say don't draft a quarterback, don't look anywhere else, but I am ready to say like this guy has something that's worth looking at. And I would never wish that somebody can't play or they remain injured or anything like that. Yeah. But if he's able to play Monday night in Green Bay, like I'm not mad at it. Like I'm more interested in kind of finding this out than anything. And is it real? Did he learn from the last stint? Like he looked good today. Like not perfect. He looked good. There were things definitely to be excited about within his performance.
Well, composure is almost number one on my list. I guess arm one, composure two. But it's funny. I had one of the worst takes I've had all season when we were all discussing it. Should Rattler come in the second half? And I was like, I thought that would be a disservice to Rattler. I thought coming in, it was 14-0 at the time. It was 17-0 by the time he got in the game because Washington kicked a field goal early in the third quarter. But I was like, all right, Jake Haener has already been sacked 3 times. This team can't run the ball, and now you're going to be down 17-0 and throw Rattler in there. He's just going to be getting pressured relentlessly. How's that going to boost his confidence? How are you going to learn more about him? I was wrong. And he didn't get sacked once. I think that is probably the biggest difference from those early games. He had 2 interceptions, 2 lost fumbles, a ton of sacks in his 3 starts, obviously behind a bad offensive line. He was escaping the pocket maybe too early. This time he stood in the pocket with confidence, composure, poise, and so that was really impressive. Didn't make every throw, but man, if he didn't look comfortable in there.
And that was one of my big points, the fact that he came in, he wasn't scared. They told him with a little bit to go at before halftime that he was going to get the start coming out. Came out, and he balled, man. He balled. And one thing that's really big is we've now seen all 3 quarterbacks play behind the starting offensive line. So I think him coming out, creating a spark on offense, really getting everybody going across the board. I think he even created a spark for the defense too, because this whole team seemed invigorated coming out in the second half. So I'm really encouraged by that. Even earlier this week when you asked who gives the best chance, I said Spencer Rattler. I kind of stuck with it. And I'm not saying
victory lap now.
Oh no. Well, it's because I wasn't really expecting to see him today, but him coming in those situations just to see what he did, it's pretty impressive for the future.
Yeah, I mean, look, he definitely played better than he did at the end of that last 3-game stretch. Like, he got benched. Like, there were times where he looked, kind of helpless within that. So that's why I want to see the extended period for him. But the thing with Haener that I think we've seen now is that in everyone's always like practice, but like, look, in these practices, like, he really does perform well in practice. He's a very good practice player, but that's kind of become the narrative of him now, in that the rookie year, he looked great all throughout training camp. He gets into the preseason and those games start happening, and it's not what we see in practice. This year, camp looks really good. Gets into the preseason. It's better than it was as a rookie, but it's just kind of all right overall. Then this year, every time he goes into a game, it felt like things were moving too fast for him. Okay, well, maybe that's because he's coming in as a backup. If he has time to prepare, does the narrative change? Okay, he comes in the game as a starter. Everything's still happening way too fast for him, and he isn't able to slow it down. And it looked kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but it didn't look good. Like, too many sacks. Just kind of felt like he couldn't get anything done back there. And that's kind of the mark that's on him now, and that's not a good mark to have. Like, I don't know how you change it. I still don't disagree with the decision to start him in there. Right. I think if you put him in there, you had to get him out of there, though. Like, you could not roll that dude back out there in the third quarter. That's forget a disservice to Spencer Rattler. That's a disservice to the whole entire organization. Like, you cannot keep going like that. I give Rizzy credit for taking him out of there. We're going to get to that in a minute. But, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with trying to find out if you have something, seeing if it's going to be better than it was with the other guy. I thought that what we saw in that 3-game stretch was going to kind of be what we saw here. It absolutely wasn't. I mean, he played great, kind of changed the narrative, as Mike said. So, yeah, I mean, it just kind of played out and went. But I think this is kind of, I'm not closing the door on anyone, but I think there's significant separation between the two players at this point.
For sure. You got anything else on this
one?
Well,
Rattler, I was going to point out on that throw to MVS that you were talking about, and how he kind of let the pressure come in. He admitted he probably hitched one too many times. He said it opened up quickly. It was exactly what they were looking for. It was exactly the look they were hoping to get when they called that play, and he knew he had it early, and he probably should have thrown it a tad sooner, maybe make it look a little cleaner, but I think he wowed us more by making it more dramatic.
Either way, I mean, it was an amazing throw. Yeah, I mean, he put it in there, though. And look, it's not all going to be perfect. Nothing about his performance was perfect. He's 10 of 21. There's 11 passes that could have been better, and a couple of the ones I hit could have been better. There was, a pass that he connected that was behind a guy, short. I think it was the Pettis, maybe was behind him, still got caught. That one there. He's saying he could have cleaned it up. So, like, look, he looked. He could move the ball, like he could play. Like, the stage wasn't too big for him. Like, he was able to go out there and play. And the juxtaposition, I think, just made it kind of crazy. The juxtaposition makes 10 of 21 probably look significantly better. But look, he brought him back with a lot of help from Kendra Miller. Like, it was a good start for him. It kind of brings a little bit of wind back into his sails. And if this is the last time we see him and Carr comes back next week, I mean, fine. That's it's a good place to kind of end it. It kind of puts a little bit of excitement back in him. I think that's good for him. If that's what we see from him moving forward on Carr, I'm trying to find the text here. And again, this person did not look at Derek Carr, did not see him, did not evaluate him, is not his doctor. But based on the type of cast, he said it's probably a metacarpal shaft fracture. If it was only the fourth and fifth fingers immobilized like that, it would be a boxer's fracture. But with all of them in that position, it's probably a shaft fracture. I looked that up. Usually 3 to 4 weeks of recovery on an injury like that, non-throwing hand. A couple weeks into it. Next week would be probably, they're a week into it. So next week would be 2 non-throwing hand. Maybe you can beat that timeline by a week if that thing's just there to kind of like support and do handoffs. I don't know, but it would be early on that. So, I would say iffy. I thought the fact that they tried to leave the door open all week this week was a little disingenuous and, just straight up fake. But, you do what you got to do for gamesmanship.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Rizzy gave us some added information there, too, when he let it slip that it's the hand/wrist area, which also lets you know that it's the base or the shaft of the metacarpal and not up in the fingers. I don't know that necessarily means he'll be out longer or shorter, but I think it's pretty a lot of signs pointing to that being where the fracture is on the hand. But obviously a lot of signs pointing to Derek Carr is probably the one who wants, every door still open. Can I play? Can I play? Especially when the Raiders come to town in a couple weeks. And maybe they'll leave those doors open for him, but that doesn't necessarily mean they'll put him back out there sooner than they want to either.
I got a take on that, but it's in the Martin's question of the day. So at the end of the show,
one more question though. The title of this show is, "Can Spencer Rattler be the Saints' future QB?" You hinted at it, Nick. We don't know enough to know that. We don't know enough to say don't draft another one. But what if he doesn't start another game? You couldn't go in with him as the projected starter if he doesn't start another game. But is it him and veteran now for you guys?
Honestly, man, at this point, I'd be ready to ride or die with him next year, get rid of Carr. And it's not because of how he played. I'm just willing to fail miserably. Get him and Andy Dalton. And
that's what I mean. If not him and Carr, him and Mason Rudolph.
Veteran,
yeah.
Someone that's $10 million. Okay, maybe you strike gold with Sam Darnold. Maybe you don't. You go in, you hope Rattler beats him out. A Sam Darnold type is what I mean. Not Sam Darnold specifically.
Sam Darnold's going to get paid a lot.
Rattler and Justin Fields, whatever it is, you can get. The problem with Derek Carr isn't that he's the Derek Carr level QB. It's that he's a Derek Carr level QB at $40 million, $33 million, whatever it is. So, yeah,
it would be 40 next year, yeah.
I would be willing to do that. I would be willing to ride or die. And I either strike gold or I'm getting the number one pick. I strike gold with the old backup that I'm taking a chance on, or the young backup that I'm taking a chance on. I strike gold with Rattler or not, or I strike gold and I get a chance to strike gold in the draft. So, that's where I would be willing to go with it at this point. I'd rather lose games with Rattler than Carr.
No, I agree. And again, we've had this conversation a million times. Completely agree with it. I think Carr is slotted where his salary is slotted where he should be. I think he's probably a little underrated, underappreciated. I would rather see this team have Spencer Rattler and a cheap veteran next year, just because of where this team is at.
Let me throw up another hypothetical. What if you're the Saints, or if you're the Saints, or with this, you're Mike Triplett, you're Brandon Thomas. Let me rephrase this. Okay,
I'm Mike.
If you go to Carr and say, hey, we're either, because there's not a lot of openings for quarterbacks. There's not a lot of people that are going to be willing to pay Derek Carr a ton of money if the Saints release him. He has offsets in his contract.
Yep.
He might not get any money at all. He might get $1 million from his next team and $9 million from the Saints.
Yep.
If they went to Carr and they said, hey, you can come back next year, but we're only paying you $20 million, and he says yes, are you agreeable to that as an analyst of the team? Do you feel like that's a worthwhile endeavor?
It's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. That's a tough conversation to have with a guy who just kind of had the same thing happen to him with the Raiders. But, hopefully he can have an open mind about him. If the team realistically says, you see our cap, we're the only team that's over the cap projected for next year, and we're $80 million projected over the cap. We got to save money. We're either going to go out there and we're going to sign Mason Rudolph or Sam Howell, or we'd love for it to be you. Can you do that for a lot cheaper? Otherwise, we're going to have to let you go in free agency. Maybe cooler heads would prevail. I would keep that door open. I'd rather have Derek Carr than Andy Dalton. I would not rather pay Derek Carr 8 times what Andy Dalton's making.
My answer is going to be, you got it?
No, go ahead.
Look, man, you talk all this, I'm a leader, I'm this, I'm that. This the time. This the time. That's what I would do. This the time to show it. Take the cut.
Yeah, maybe. Look, the thing, I would be okay with them doing it, because the flip side is you got a shit ton of dead money and no quarterback, and you got to go pay another one, and then your net overall in that. It's so I would be willing to take the, at $20 million, it's more palatable, you know.
Yeah,
but
you save $20 million. That's a big savings.
Right.
I like the idea of maybe potentially striking gold somewhere, though. Like, you know, you're taking gold off the table if you do that. So I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about it. But if, you know, the options are a ton of dead money, I don't know. I really don't know which way to go with it. It's just, it feels like a bad situation kind of all the way around, no matter what you do. Even if you cut them, like, it's still, you're still not showing up with a better quarterback, but is down the way up. It might not be that either, but at some point, if you're just riding with Derek, that down's coming anyhow. So, like, I'm just ready to see them take the medicine and just get on the other side of it.
Yep.